It was a bright afternoon when Maya stepped into the bank. She was just a young black girl, around 13 years old. Her clothes were clean but simple. Her shoes were old. Her backpack had frayed straps. She held a school folder in one hand and a small white envelope in the other. The building was tall and shiny, the kind of place rich people came to sign big checks, the kind of place where every pen was golden and every chair had soft leather. Maya didn't seem to fit in, but she walked in anyway. She stood in the line quietly, not looking left, not looking right, just waiting. The staff behind the counter noticed her. One woman whispered, "Whose kid is that?" Another laughed and said, "She must be lost. This isn't the public library." The man at the front desk glanced at her, raised his eyebrow, and turned away without a word. Still, Maya waited. When it was finally her turn, she walked up to the counter. The teller, Ms. Clara, looked her up and down. She sighed, then rolled her eyes. With a fake smile, she leaned forward and said in a sweet but cold voice, "Are you lost, sweetheart?" Maya didn't smile. She didn't show any fear. "No," she said softly. "I'm here for a transfer." The teller blinked. "A transfer?" she repeated, confused. "Yes," Maya said, "from my father's account." Behind her, a few customers turned their heads. Ms. Clara chuckled, then looked at her coworker and said loud enough to hear, "She wants a transfer." "How cute." Her coworker replied, "Maybe she means lunch money." A few more chuckles spread. Maya stood still. She didn't move. She didn't frown. She didn't even blink. Then, slowly, she raised her hand and placed the small white envelope on the counter. "This is from my father," she said quietly. The envelope had no address, no bank logo. But in the center was a strange seal. It was deep red, shaped like a shield, with a symbol that looked like an eagle holding stars. Clara stopped laughing. Her eyes narrowed. She picked up the envelope carefully. When she flipped it open, her smile faded. Inside was a handwritten note. She read it twice, then a third time. Suddenly, she stood up straight. "Excuse me," she said, and rushed to the back. Whispers began to spread. A few moments passed. Then two other staff members walked out, holding the note. They looked at Maya, then looked at each other. The branch manager, a man in a gray suit with silver hair, appeared next. He read the letter. His face turned pale. "Maya Freeman?" he asked. She nodded once. He swallowed hard. "This way, please." The customers in the bank turned to look. The same people who had ignored her were now staring. Maya followed the manager down a hallway, past glass offices, and into a private VIP room. From laughter to silence. In the main hall, Clara whispered, "Who is she?" Her coworker whispered back, "I don't know, but the seal on that letter looked military." Another staff member searched on their phone and suddenly gasped, "I think I know who her father is." They all leaned in. "Colonel Isaac Freeman. He's been on the news. Cybersecurity. Government task force. That guy's no joke." The laughter died completely. A deep silence filled the room. Inside the VIP room, Maya sat on a soft leather chair. The manager offered her water. She politely said no. He looked nervous, sweating even though the AC was on. "I apologize for how our staff treated you," he said. Maya stayed silent. She looked at the folder in her lap, then at the big window beside her. The manager continued, "Your father's instructions were very clear. You have full authorization." Maya simply nodded. No smile, no anger, just calm, like she had been here before. Outside, the staff waited. No one was laughing now. They stood in silence, waiting to see if she would come out and tell them off. But Maya didn't want revenge. She didn't come to make noise. She came to do what she was told. Stay calm, handle business, and let the world figure out the rest. And in just a few minutes, the entire bank learned a lesson they would never forget. The door to the VIP room closed softly behind Maya. Outside, the staff stood frozen, their eyes still on the hallway she had disappeared into. The laughter had vanished. The whispers had stopped. The bank, once filled with quiet snickers and fake smiles, was now filled with something else. Fear. No one really knew what was in the letter, but they all felt it. Clara, the teller who had mocked Maya, held the edge of her desk tightly. She remembered the seal. That red symbol, it wasn't just decoration. It looked official, important, powerful. She said it's from her father, one staff member said softly. But who is her father? Another asked. Before anyone could answer, the branch manager stepped out of the VIP room. His face was pale. His hand shook slightly as he walked toward the front desk. "Everyone," he said, voice low and serious. "No one is to speak about what happened earlier." "But sir," Clara tried to ask. He raised a hand. "No questions. No jokes. No assumptions. That girl is not just any visitor. She's Maya Freeman." Clara blinked. "Freeman." He looked at her straight. "Her father is Colonel Isaac Freeman." The room fell into complete silence. Colonel Isaac Freeman. Some of the younger staff didn't understand, but the older ones did. Colonel Isaac Freeman was not just a military man. He was a legend in government circles, a cyber defense expert, a man trusted with protecting the financial systems of the country. Some even said he advised top-secret missions. The news had mentioned him a few times, quietly, respectfully, and never with too much detail. He was the kind of man who didn't appear in magazines, but who had the power to shut down banks if he wanted to. And his daughter, his only daughter, had just been mocked in one of those banks. Inside the VIP room, Maya sat calmly, her folder resting on the glass table in front of her. The manager tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Would you like anything? Juice? Snacks? We have." "I'm fine," she said politely. He nodded. "Of course. I want you to feel comfortable." She didn't say anything else. Instead, she opened her folder and placed two documents on the table. One was a school report. The other was a bank transfer form. "My dad said you'll know what to do," she said. He looked at the documents. Simple stuff, really. A transfer for a school project fund. It wasn't even a large amount. But the note that came with it, the one in the envelope, was what changed everything. The note that changed everything. The envelope Maya had handed over earlier was now sitting on the manager's desk like a piece of gold. Inside was a handwritten message that said, "This is my daughter, Maya Freeman. She speaks for me. Give her full access. Treat her like you would treat me. Colonel Isaac Freeman." At the bottom was a symbol only a few people would recognize. It was the seal of a federal financial task force, one that even top banks answered to. The manager didn't need more instructions. The shift. Orders were sent quietly to the back offices. "Clear room 3 for VIP guest. Bring the transfer specialist. Print a fresh welcome letter. Address it to Miss Maya Freeman." Meanwhile, Clara watched everything unfold from her desk. She felt a knot in her chest. Just 10 minutes ago, she had laughed at that girl, called her sweetheart, mocked her for being poor. Now the same girl was sitting in a leather chair, being treated like royalty. Clara felt small, really small. The call that confirmed it all. Then came the final moment. A secure phone line rang in the manager's office. He picked it up. A deep voice spoke on the other side. "This is Colonel Freeman. Just confirming Maya arrived safely." The manager stood straight. "Yes, sir. She's being taken care of. My full apologies, sir. She wasn't treated properly at first." There was a short pause. "Then, that's your second mistake. The first was judging her by her clothes. The second was thinking she needed me to be respected." The line went silent. Then it ended. The manager put the phone down slowly. He walked back into the VIP room. "Maya," he said gently, "would you be okay if we took care of the transfer for you now?" She nodded. "Thank you." Back outside, everyone waited. No one spoke. No one laughed. Clara sat at her desk, staring at the screen but not reading a word. She had learned something the hard way. Sometimes the most powerful people don't walk in wearing suits. Sometimes they walk in wearing worn-out shoes, holding just a school folder and an envelope. The door of the VIP room opened slowly, and Maya stepped out. She held her folder tightly and gave a soft nod to the manager before walking toward the main lobby. Everyone in the bank turned to look at her. But this time, it wasn't mocking. It wasn't laughter. It was silent respect and fear. The same girl they had whispered about, the one they thought didn't belong, was now someone they wished they had treated kindly. Maya didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply walked past them, head held high, with quiet confidence. And just as she reached the door to leave, it happened. The front door of the bank opened again, and in stepped the man they never expected to see. The man in the black coat. He was tall, broad, and serious. His black coat had no brand. His shoes were simple but polished. His walk was calm, but powerful. He didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need to say who he was. The entire room felt who he was. Colonel Isaac Freeman had arrived. He looked around the bank with eyes sharp as steel. Every staff member suddenly stood straight. Clara dropped her pen. The branch manager walked quickly to greet him. "Colonel Freeman, sir," he said, almost trembling. "We didn't know you were coming." "I know," the colonel said, his voice deep and steady. "I wanted to see things for myself." Maya walked up to him. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and looked down at her. "You good?" She nodded. "All done." He looked up at the manager. "She handled it well. Better than most adults would." The manager forced a small smile. "Yes, sir. She's impressive." No one dared speak. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then Colonel Freeman looked around the room. His gaze stopped at Clara. She tried to look away, but it was too late. He had seen her. He walked over, slowly and firmly. Clara stood behind the counter, frozen. "Do you remember her?" he asked. Clara nodded. "Do you remember what you said to her when she walked in?" She didn't answer. He continued. "You looked at a child and decided she was nothing. You judged her before she even spoke, and you weren't alone." Tears started forming in Clara's eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Sorry to her?" he asked. She looked at Maya. "I'm sorry, Maya. I really am." Maya nodded. Her face was calm, but her eyes held quiet power. A message for everyone. Colonel Freeman turned to face the whole bank. "I'm not here to scare you," he said, "but I want all of you to remember something." He paused. "People like Maya don't need fancy clothes to matter. They don't need to explain their worth. You were all ready to laugh at her. But the truth is, she's stronger, smarter, and more respectful than anyone else in this room today." The silence was deep. He looked at the branch manager. "You'll be reporting this to your regional office. Full statement, including staff behavior. If it's not filed, I'll know." The manager nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. Of course." Then Colonel Freeman turned to Maya. "Let's go." They walked toward the door together. But before they left, he turned around one last time. "One more thing," he said. "Teach your staff this. Sometimes the quietest voice in the room carries the loudest power." And then they were gone. After they left, no one said a word for a long time. The staff stood quietly, some with heads bowed, others still trying to understand what had just happened. Clara walked into the break room, sat down, and held her face in her hands. She didn't lose her job that day, but she lost something else. Her pride. She had mocked a little girl. And that little girl walked out stronger than anyone else. Long after Maya and her father left the bank, the question still hung in the air. Who was this Colonel Freeman, really? And how did a simple envelope from him bring an entire elite bank staff to silence? Clara sat at her desk, still shaken. She couldn't stop thinking about Maya, the quiet girl with the old backpack who had walked in like a nobody but left like a queen. But what haunted her most wasn't just the shame she felt. It was the seal. That strange red mark on the envelope. Simple, clean, but powerful. It wasn't just decoration. It was a symbol that held weight, the kind that made managers panic and phone lines light up. Clara couldn't forget it. So, when her shift ended, she searched. A quiet search for answers. Clara didn't want anyone to know she was curious, but she couldn't help it. She went home, turned on her old laptop, and began to type. Red seal with hawk and stars. Military seal with shadow wings. Nothing clear came up. Then she remembered what the branch manager had whispered. She's Maya Freeman, Colonel Isaac Freeman's daughter. She typed in the name. Isaac Freeman. At first, nothing. Just old newspaper articles, one photo. Always blurred, always formal. But then she found a government blog. Not well known, just a simple post from 5 years ago. The headline read, "Behind the digital shield, the man protecting our nation's secrets." Clara clicked. The real Isaac Freeman. The article was short. It didn't reveal much, just enough to understand why Colonel Freeman was feared and respected. He wasn't a celebrity. He was a ghost with clearance. He built security systems for the country's most secret files. He trained special units in cyber defense. He had access to accounts that most people didn't even know existed. But the final paragraph made Clara's hands go cold. Those who know Colonel Freeman know not to question his instructions. His seal is trusted by heads of banks, security chiefs, and federal judges. If his daughter shows it, you treat it like law. She stared at the screen. That was the seal. That was the envelope Maya had handed her with calm hands. And she had laughed at it. Meanwhile, at Maya's home, Maya sat on her bed, reading a science book. Her backpack lay by her feet, still half-zipped. Colonel Freeman walked in, holding a tray with 2 glasses of juice. "Long day?" he asked with a gentle smile. She nodded. "You okay?" "Yeah," she said, but her voice was soft. I didn't like how they looked at me." He sat beside her. "They looked at you like you were less than them." "I know." She looked up. "Why do people do that?" He took a deep breath. "Because they've been trained to believe money equals worth. Suits mean power. Skin means status." She stared at him. "But it's not true." He smiled gently. "No, it's not. That's why you walked in with your head high. That's why you didn't shout or cry. You knew who you were, even if they didn't." The envelope's purpose. Maya picked up the folder from her bag. Inside was the envelope again. The one with the red seal. "Why did you give me this, Dad?" He looked at it carefully. "Because I wanted you to have a voice when others refused to listen. But I don't want people to fear me." "They didn't fear you, Maya. They feared the truth that came with you. That's different." She nodded slowly. "But next time," he added, "you won't need the envelope." She looked confused. He leaned in and said softly, "Next time, they'll remember your name." Back at the bank, Clara couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the moment Maya said, "This is from my father," and the entire bank seemed to pause. She realized now, it wasn't just the paper. It was Maya's confidence, her quiet strength. Clara had met wealthy clients before, loud, rude, flashy. But Maya, she had walked in with no attitude, no demands, just purpose. And now, Clara had a new kind of respect, not just for Colonel Freeman, but for his daughter. She picked up her phone and sent a message to the bank group chat. "From tomorrow, We treat everyone with kindness, whether they walk in with a suit or with a backpack. There were no replies. But the message was seen, and it stayed there as a quiet reminder. 2 weeks had passed since Maya walked into the bank with an old folder, a sealed envelope, and quiet courage. Now life had returned to normal, or so it seemed. But Maya wasn't the same, and neither was the world around her. Back to school. It was Monday morning. Maya stood outside the front gate of her school, holding her backpack and a notebook filled with math problems. As usual, she kept to herself. She wasn't the type to talk loudly or show off. Most students didn't even know her name. Some called her the quiet girl. Others said, she's smart but strange. But today, something felt different. As she walked through the hallway, some kids looked at her, then looked away quickly. Her teacher, Ms. Ray, who usually rushed past students, suddenly stopped and smiled. "Good morning, Maya." Maya blinked. That had never happened before. "Good morning, ma'am," she replied politely. Whispers in the hallway. At lunch, Maya sat alone under a tree with her book. 2 girls from her class sat a few feet away. They weren't whispering about celebrities or exams like usual. They were whispering about her. "That's the girl I told you about. She shut down a whole bank." "No way." "I'm serious. My dad works in finance. He said she's the daughter of some big officer, someone powerful." Maya heard it, but she didn't say anything. She just kept reading, her fingers gently flipping the pages. She didn't care for attention. What mattered was that they now saw her differently, not because of fear, but respect. And it wasn't the kind you could fake. A sudden announcement. That afternoon, the school made a special announcement. "Students, please gather in the auditorium after last period. We have a guest joining us today." Whispers spread like wildfire. "Is it a celebrity?" "No, I heard it's someone from the government." Maya sat quietly in her classroom, but her heart skipped a beat. She had a strange feeling. The man who walked in. The bell rang. The students filled the auditorium. The principal walked onto the stage, cleared his throat, and smiled. "Today, we are honored to have a very special guest with us. Someone who has served the country for years, but never asks for applause. A man who believes that true strength is quiet. Please welcome Colonel Isaac Freeman." Gasps filled the room. Maya's eyes widened. Her father. She hadn't known. She sank slightly into her seat, embarrassed but proud. A father's words to a school. Colonel Freeman walked to the microphone. He didn't smile, but his presence was calm. He scanned the room full of young faces. "Thank you for having me," he began. "I didn't come here today as a soldier. I came as a father." The room went still. "I came to talk to you about something more important than medals, money, or uniforms." He paused. "I came to talk about dignity." He spoke about how people often judge by appearance, how kids mock others who wear old shoes or bring plain lunches, how adults forget that respect isn't something you wear, it's something you give. And then, without naming her, he told the story. The story that silenced the room. There was a girl, he said, who walked into a fancy bank. Alone. Young. Quiet. The staff laughed at her, thinking she didn't belong. They judged her by her clothes, but what they didn't see was her strength. Students listened, frozen. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She simply showed them who she was, with calm, grace, and confidence. He looked around the room. Some of you may know who I'm talking about. Some of you may not. But what matters is how you treat the next person who walks in wearing old shoes, or sits alone at lunch, or speaks with an accent. He stepped back from the mic. Because one day, that quiet kid might be the one you work for. The moment after, the room erupted in applause. But Maya sat quietly, her cheeks warm, her heart beating fast. Her father didn't say her name, but he didn't need to. She knew, and a few others did too. When it was time to leave, her classmate Ethan walked up to her. "Hey," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "You? You're really cool." Maya smiled softly. "Thanks." And for the first time since she joined the school, someone asked, "Want to sit with us tomorrow at lunch?" A change begins. That night, Maya sat on the porch with her father. "You didn't tell me you were speaking today," she said. "I wanted it to be real," he replied. "I wanted you to see how much you matter. Not because I'm your dad, but because of who you are." Maya looked up at the stars. She didn't need the seal anymore. She didn't need the envelope. She had something stronger now. She had self-worth. And the world was slowly starting to see it too. The sun was just rising over the city when the branch manager, Mr. Dwyer, walked into the bank. It was supposed to be a normal day. But it wasn't. On his desk sat a plain white envelope. No return address. No stamp. Just a red wax seal. The same seal Maya had brought 2 weeks ago. His hands trembled. He didn't touch it at first. He just stared. Then slowly, with cold fingers, he broke the seal and opened it. Inside the envelope, there was only one page inside. Typed. Clean. Sharp words. Mr. Dwyer's eyes scanned the letter, and his face turned pale. It wasn't a threat. It was worse. It was a summary of everything that had happened the day Maya walked in. How the teller mocked her. How the staff laughed behind her back. How the manager refused to assist. How she was questioned like a thief, not a customer. The letter ended with one sentence. "You were given the chance to act with dignity. You failed." And below that, a signature. Isaac Freeman, Colonel, U.S. Cyber Defense Command, Department of Justice Liaison. Mr. Dwyer slumped in his chair. This was bad. This was career-ending bad. The panic spreads. By 9:00 a.m., the letter had reached the regional director. By 11:00 a.m., it was forwarded to the legal team. By 1:00 p.m., the entire HR department was in a private video meeting with the CEO. "What happened at that branch is unacceptable," the CEO said sharply. "Do we have footage?" "Yes, sir." "And who handled the young girl that day?" A list of names was shown, including Mr. Dwyer, including Clara, including the teller who had asked Maya if she was lost. A sudden visit. That afternoon, a black government SUV pulled up outside the bank. 2 agents stepped out. They weren't dressed like FBI or military, but everyone could tell they weren't ordinary people. They walked in calmly and asked one question. "Is Mr. Dwyer in?" The staff froze. Mr. Dwyer came out, sweat on his forehead. "Ah, yes. That's me." The agent handed him a small folder. "This is an official request for cooperation. Colonel Freeman has asked for a formal review of your branch's behavior. You are to assist without resistance." Then the agents left, just like that. No yelling, no drama, just silence. But in that silence, fear, Clara's regret. Clara washed all of it from her desk. She felt sick. She hadn't been the worst that day, but she had laughed. She had judged Maya just like the others. Now it was all coming back. The guilt, the shame, the realization that one moment of pride could destroy years of work. She opened her inbox. There was already an email waiting. Subject: Investigation Notice. You have been listed in the formal report submitted to Federal Ethics Review. She covered her face with her hands. What had she done? The public finds out. By evening, news had leaked. Not everything, just enough. A story began spreading online. Bank staff mocked a girl. Her father's letter reached the Pentagon. The article didn't name Maya. It didn't show her picture. But people began sharing it. Twitter, Facebook, news blogs, thousands of comments. Good. Banks need to be held accountable. Respect is for everyone, no matter what they wear. Shout out to that girl's dad. What a legend. The bank's official account stayed silent. They didn't know what to say. They were caught. and the whole world was watching. Maya finds out. Maya was at home doing her homework when her phone buzzed. Her friend Ethan had sent a message. "You're trending." Kind of. She clicked the link. Her eyes widened. She turned to her father. "Dad." He looked up from the newspaper. "Yes." "You sent them a letter?" He nodded calmly. "I did." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted them to feel the surprise you felt when they disrespected you." Maya was quiet. "Are they in trouble?" "Yes, but not because I want revenge. It's because they need to learn a deeper lesson." That night, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Everything was moving fast. But inside, she felt peaceful. Because this wasn't about making noise. It was about making change. And now, for the first time, she understood her father's silence. He didn't need to yell to be powerful. He didn't need to argue to be heard. He just needed truth and a seal. 3 days had passed. The bank's boardroom was filled with cold silence. Suits sat stiff in their chairs, faces tight with stress. On the large screen at the front of the room was a video paused at an image. Maya standing quietly at the counter. Her backpack looked small. Her eyes looked unsure. The room remained silent. Until the CEO, Mr. Ronville, finally spoke. "We failed." His voice was heavy. No one argued. Because they all knew it wasn't just about one girl. It was about a system that had treated her like she didn't belong. And now the system was under fire. The decision. The CEO stood. "We can't hide behind a press release. Not this time," he said. "We have to look the public in the eye." One executive whispered, "Sir, do you mean an actual apology?" "Yes," he said. "A real one. On camera. With names, faces, truth." The board members looked shocked. No corporate language. No soft words. "We owe her the truth." He walked out of the room and called his assistant. "Get the media. I'm going live in 1 hour." The broadcast. Across the country, millions of people were scrolling through their phones when the alert came. Breaking. Bank CEO to issue live apology over viral discrimination case. Social media exploded. TV channels paused other programs. In a quiet living room, Maya sat with her father. Her school books were still open, but now forgotten. "Dad, they're really going on live TV?" Her father nodded. "They're scared." The apology begins. Mr. Ronville sat at a plain desk. No logo behind him. No suit jacket, just a simple white shirt. His face looked tired, honest. He looked into the camera. And then he spoke. 3 weeks ago, a young girl walked into one of our branches. She was quiet, polite, strong. But instead of treating her with respect, my staff treated her with judgment. Not because she did something wrong, but because of the way she looked. We laughed. We dismissed her, and we forgot that behind her quiet voice was something powerful. Her name is Maya Freeman. And to Maya, and to every young person who's ever been made to feel small, I am sorry. He paused, and then something no one expected happened. He stepped away from the camera, and Maya appeared. Maya speaks. The room went silent. Maya sat at the desk, hands folded. Her father stood behind her, just out of frame. Her voice was soft, but clear. "When I came to the bank, I didn't come for a fight. I came because my father trusted me to deliver something important. I didn't know people would laugh. I didn't know they would look at me like I didn't belong. But now I know their mistake was not seeing what I carried inside." She held up the same envelope, the red wax seal still visible. "Respect. That's what I carried. Not because of money, not because of power, but because I am a person. And every person deserves it." Tears filled many eyes across the country. The internet reacts. Within minutes, hashtags started trending. Hashtag Wear Maya. Hashtag Respect is Basic. Hashtag Shebalong Dalalong. Comments flooded in. She spoke better than half the politicians I've seen. Her calm is louder than their cruelty. Raise your daughters like Maya. Maya didn't check the comments. She just leaned against her father and exhaled. It's over, she whispered. But he smiled and shook his head. No, he said. It's just beginning. What changed? The next day, the bank issued an official change in policy. Mandatory respect training for all employees. A new complaint line run by an independent board. Anonymous surveys sent to every customer, every week. And most important, a plaque was installed inside the branch Maya had visited. It said, "This building promises to serve every human being with respect, no matter their age, color, or clothes." Inspired by Maya Freeman. People stopped and took pictures. Some cried. Even Clara, who had once rolled her eyes, stood before the plaque one day and whispered, "I'm sorry." A new beginning. A month later, Maya returned to school. Some kids smiled at her in the hallway. Some waved. One teacher said, "I saw you on the news." But Maya just kept walking. Because she didn't need the fame. She had already won. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with dignity. And that, in the end, was louder than any shout.